Recubbed, a Lionkingview fanfic by Lionkingview. Chapter 6. Simba was awoken just before dawn by some faint noises talking outside of the den. He got up to investigate. Once he stepped out of the den, he saw a dark-furred cub talking to Kiara, the cub Simba had gotten angry at yesterday. Simba was not visible for the other two. Concentrating intensely, Simba managed to listen in on their conversation. "You sure they won't know? I mean, there's quite a lot of meat," said the dark-furred cub. "As I said, take it. My dad isn't really around, well, sort of. The point is, I have more than enough food, but you don't," answered Kiara. "I mean, it's not like we don't sneak into the Pride Lands to hunt for some food," countered the other cub with a sly grin. "Kovu, you know what I mean," said Kiara as she nuzzled the other cub Simba now knew was called Kovu. Even though it was still dark, Simba could make out the features of this other cub called Kovu. Kovu somewhat resembled his uncle Scar. Scar, so Simba thought, was really cool and even more funny. "I'll miss you," said Kiara. "I'll miss you too," said Kovu and planted a small kiss on Kiara's lips. Simba rolled his eyes. Kiara and Kovu weren't that much older than Simba, but those few months that they were older than him had given them a bit more of a mental maturity. It no longer was mushy stuff to them, it was love. Kovu took a large piece of meat and started to drag it towards the outlands, while Kiara started to make her way back towards the den. Simba hid in a shadow cast by the moon as to avoid Kiara's gaze. Once Kiara had passed him without a hint of recognition, Simba started to walk down the descending part of Pride Rock. He wanted to know more about this Kovu guy. Maybe Kovu was just as cool as his uncle, thought Simba as he snuck off into the tall grass in pursuit. Kovu could see the first rays of sunlight caress the horizon as he was 1/3 of the way done. Dragging the piece of meat along the way turned out to be a bit more exhausting than he had anticipated. Yet, in all this exhaustion, he hadn't let his guard down. For about 10 minutes now, small paws, like those of another cub, had been following him. The noise was unmistakable. Kovu hadn't said or done anything, as it was pretty probable that the other cub would try to flee the moment that they were confronted. A chase through the tall grass was one of the last things Kovu was in the right mood for. Instead, he kept on walking until he arrived at a rock that appeared to be rising out of the surrounding tall grass like a fin of a shark. Kovu, knowing that his pursuer was still a few feet behind him, made a sharp left turn and disappeared behind the rock. Simba waited for Kovu to reappear on the other side of the rock, but nothing was seen of the dark-furred cub. So Simba carefully went to investigate. He tried his best to make as little noise as possible. When he turned around the rock's corner, he was surprised to find that Kovu wasn't there either. But where could Kovu be if he hadn't passed the rock or wasn't behind it either? Then it hit Simba, and he looked up just to be greeted by Kovu pouncing at him from atop that rock. Simba looked as surprised as a deer getting struck by lightning while being run over by a car. Pinned down, Simba tried to keep his cool. What's up?" he said with a sheepish smile. "Not much, I was just wondering whom exactly might be following me and why," said Kovu with an investigative stare. "I'm not a threat to you. Actually, I think you're really cool. You kind of look like my uncle, and I wanted to follow you to see where you came from," answered Simba truthfully. "I look like your uncle?" asked Kovu in confusion. "Yeah, he has the same cool-looking black and brown mane," explained Simba. "Okay." Kovu came to the conclusion that this kid wasn't any actual danger to him. He was just a naive little cub that followed him out of pure curiosity. Now that he was looking straight into the eyes of his pursuer, though, he couldn't help but feel that this cub seemed familiar. "What was your name again?" asked Kovu. "I'm Simba," answered the cub once again with excitement. "Simba?" asked Kovu, hoping he had misheard. But much to his confusion, the cub repeated what he had just said. "Yes, my name is Simba." Kovu looked deep into the cub's eyes. There was a certain familiarity to them. He just couldn't put his finger on where he had seen those eyes before. As for his name, Kovu reasoned, The cub's mother probably just named him after the king. What an ego boost that must have been for the oh-so-great and powerful King Simba. Or King Asshat, as his mother would say. The cub kept talking. I know your name is Kovu. I heard you and Kiara talking and... smooching each other. Simba grimaced. Kovu ever so slightly blushed. Now the cub had become a possible threat. Kiara and Kovu had met each other less often over the last few months. That was partly due to the Lion Guard patrolling the Pride Lands more thoroughly. Every meeting they've had been taking place in complete secrecy. Organising them was always complicated, but not impossible. All these precautions, however, had been worth it, as they hadn't been caught. The consequences of being caught they both knew would be severe. The worst case scenario was a war. What exactly did you hear? Asked Kovu, trying to hide a mix of fuming anger and fear that was building up inside him. Not much, just that she gave you this meat to keep, also that mushy stuff, Simba answered, still smiling innocently. Man, I really wish I had your mane, mused Simba. It looks so cool. Kovu was contemplating on what to do next. He could just kill the cub with a precise slash to the jugular, and within minutes, if not within seconds, the cub would be no more. Could you let me up? Asked Simba, still unaware of the potential danger they was in now. Just a moment, said Kovu. I need to think. Back at Pride Rock, Kion was looking around for Simba. Kiara, you haven't seen Simba around by any chance? He asked his sister, who had just woken up. What? No, not really. I thought he was sleeping next to Nala, Kiara answered as she looked back into the den. Sure enough, she could only make out the still snoozing shape of Nala. The last time I saw him was just before I went to sleep, said Kion. I was up before dawn. He was still there when I stepped outside, said Kiara. I didn't really pay attention when I came back in, she went on. What were you doing up so early? Asked Kion. I was just, going for little lionesses, she said, hoping eagerly that Kion was not going to investigate any further out of pure courtesy. You seem unsure, inquired Kion. Of course, he would ask further questions. Kiara resisted the urge of rolling her eyes. Are you sure you didn't see anything? Kion asked. Kiara stopped. She couldn't tell him about Kovu, of course, but just what if Kovu had something to do with this? Kiara remembered the stories her mom would tell Kion and her about all the mischief the two would get into, or more accurately, Simba would get them into. Simba, so Nala had told them, was very talented at attracting trouble like a carcass attracts flies. What if Simba had seen her and Kovu talking? What if he had been curious about Kovu and started following him? But there was a flaw in that explanation. Kovu was not very friendly to strangers, so Kovu was very likely to tell Simba to get lost once he knew he was being followed. Unless... Oh no! Kiara exclaimed. What is it? Asked Kion. I think I might know where Simba is, Kiara said. Though I hope I'm wrong, Kiara added as she started to run down Pride Rock. Follow me, or maybe get fully... We need to get to the Pride Lands border as quickly as possible, she said. What's going on? Nala stumbled out of the den, sleep still heavily occupying her eyelids. Simba's missing, replied Kion without giving it much thought. He's probably just out adventuring. He does that all the time. I mean, it's odd that he went off while I was still sleeping, Nala said. Kion, take care of Nala. I'll try to find Simba. The last thing we need is another kid getting into trouble, Kiara said as she stormed off. Kiara, wait! Kion interjected, but she was already gone. Why are you supposed to look after me? You're not my mum, Nala asked. Kion didn't want to bother with logical explanation. 'Cause your mom. He didn't believe he just uttered this phrase. 'Cause my mom what? Nala asked with naivety. She said you gotta listen to me, Kion improvised. Oh yeah? Let's go to her now, Nala said as she turned around to enter the den again. Serafina hadn't been informed about the current situation regarding Simba and Nala. This was going to be interesting, thought Kion as he followed her. At the border of the Pride Lands, Kovu meanwhile had come to a decision. End of chapter 6.